Happy New Year to everybody who follows podcast in Malawi. It's 2023, and we couldn't start the year on a better note. I'm so excited for this podcast today. I think we did like a lot of interviews last year with a lot of people, thought leaders, people in the entertainment industry, and everyday people just talk about their lives and everything that they're going through and what they think about the country and everything really. And wow, I've never been excited on a podcast like today because of the person that I'm going to be having a conversation with. So, the spirit of the podcast is having conversations and try to find out how people are doing different things and what their aspirations are about the country, about the continent, and even globally. And today I've got somebody who I look up to for a whole lot of reasons. And don't forget that this podcast is brought to you by Crypto University. If you want to start learning about trading, whether it's cryptos, whether it's NFTs, and everything about that, I think 2023, you could learn about trading on cryptouniversity.network. So log in to Crypto University and find out. So, like I say, today, it's my biggest honor to have the Director General of Communications in Malawi, the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, Daud Suleman. Welcome to podcast, Daud.
Oh, thank you very much, and
Sure.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too.
Sure.
Great. 2022 has been a mixed year with different things coming from COVID to everything else, economically and whatnot. But I think one thing that kept standing out from my end has always been, I think, the steps that you as a person have been taking as the Director General of the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, MACRA. And I think we've been observing, but sometimes we give people some time before maybe we start looking deep into everything. So it's my pleasure to have you on podcast. This is the leading podcast in Malawi.
Okay.
We have a very big viewership within and outside the country.
Okay.
And it's a big honor to have you.
No, thank you very much. I think it is also inspiring to be on a platform such as this. So I'm very interested to learn from you. But most importantly is that I think it's a bold step that you have taken. I think we'll discuss more, but I think new media is taking a different shape, and
Thank you.
it's about time that as a country and as entrepreneurs, as content creators, that we begin to pay attention to podcasts. And in my little understanding and in my little view, I think this is the next generation radio. So you're on the right track.
And I think we couldn't start the year because we've got bigger plans for the year. We've got big aspirations for the year about content and everything. And I think it's just right that we're starting with you because you're sitting at the helm of broadcasting and communications and tech in Malawi. So I think before we go further, for people that don't know you, we know you have given interviews and whatnot, but for the spirit of the conversation, for people that are just like, oh, who's Daud Suleimani? Just a bit background about Daud. I know we have seen you in sports. We have seen you in tech, music sometime. Briefly, who is Daud Suleiman?
Daud Suleman is a guy that grew up in Chilinde, just a few kilometers out of where we are.
Yeah, exactly.
In Lilongwe. I went to Chuoko Primary School. I grew up in the neighborhood where we used to play a lot of sport, a lot of football. And because Chilinde is just outside Kamuzu Barracks, I got exposed to a number of sporting disciplines at a very early age. So I could play volleyball, I could play basketball, I could play handball, I could play hockey, and I could also play football. So sport was a key element as I was growing up. I went to Chipasula Secondary School. School was fun, but sports was more fun at Chipasula. So I pretty much became more serious and more focused on basketball. So I played a lot of basketball to the extent that I had an opportunity to go to the States. So here is a kid that grew up in Chilinde, doesn't have a passport, has never seen the entrances of an airport, and there is someone who is saying, "No, you have to come to America and play basketball."
Yeah.
So I was excited. I remember myself and my mother, we boarded a minibus for me to catch my first flight. So
Wow.
dropped off at Lumbadzi and walked from that junction to the
The airport.
airport. Yes, yes.
Wow.
So jumped in, and that was the beginning of the next chapter. So sport and basketball really played a very key role in my growing up. I think I learned a lot of discipline. I learned a lot of perseverance. I learned a lot of you could be losing a game, but until the last second,
Yeah.
that's when you either win or you lose. So basketball taught me to stick in there. Basketball taught me to always compete fairly, and basketball taught me to also be present and be there. You must show up.
Yeah.
Don't just come, but you must show up. So when I went to the States, I found out that I was the shortest person in our team.
What?
And wearing size 12, 13, that was the smallest shoe on the team. So I'm coming from Malawi, where I was the tallest and I was the biggest. I was playing center. I go to the States, and I'm pretty much the shortest person. So now I have to transition from playing center to now relocate to point guard, because now I can't fit in.
Yeah.
I now have to redistribute the ball, and I have to acquire a new skill. So that in itself was eye-opening, in the sense that I just grew up playing basketball because we watched basketball on tape. We watched other people play basketball, but didn't really know that there was a technical side to the game. The way you handle the ball, the way you can pass the ball. You don't just throw the ball. The way you run, the way you position, what those lines are meaning on the court. So it was a new experience I had to learn. And again, you see that I was, instead of that being a very happy moment, I realized that, I am now in the deepest end.
Yeah.
Now I have to swim, and I have to learn the game. I have to reposition myself. So many a times that in life, you get thrown into new circumstances, into new areas that you have to reprogram yourself. So for me, it was a new challenge. I was like, okay, let me learn. So I started playing point guard. But at that point, it was a 4-year scholarship to play basketball in the States. But when I looked at my age, because at that time I was around 21,
Okay.
and the other kids were 16, 17, and they're bigger, faster,
Yeah.
taller than me, and they had a bigger shot at basketball than I was. And by that time, I already had made some progress in the field of IT and computer sciences. So I opted to come back after a year. So my coach could not believe it, that here's a kid from Africa.
There's an opportunity to play
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
US.
and he's in the US, and he's saying, "No, I want to go back." So when he asked me, I told him that I had thought that there was an opportunity I could do a school in Malawi at a master's degree level, and I thought it was a better option for me to come back than to stay in America, play basketball, and pretty much waste 4 years. Because at the end of those 4 years, I wouldn't have made it into the NBA, or I would have made it maybe to the other pro leagues, but 4 plus 21 would be 25.
Right,
At 25, you must be at the prime,
of your
not
career.
not graduating from college and then going into the career.
Yeah.
So I came back, and immediately joined Malawi Institute of Management, MIM, in their second cohort for University of Debe, a strategic management master's degree. So I was the youngest kid in that class, I think at about 22, and I was the only one who didn't have a car. And I was the only one who, I think at that time, I was an intern at Opportunity International Bank
Bank. Okay.
when it was just starting as Usuawata. So I was just helping part-time IT. Went through that course, and did a number of IT certifications. Eventually rose from being an intern at Opportunity Bank to being the chief information officer for the bank by the time that I left. And then I went to Blantyre. I joined Nico Holdings. I was the chief technical officer for Nico Holdings under Nico Technologies. Got seconded to NBS Bank, where I was chief information officer for about 2 years. And then I came back. I started to put up a few things of my own. And then now here we are. Now I'm at MACRA as the director general. So I think briefly that is who this guy is.
That's interesting because I've known you as a person as Daudi, and like I said, I think most of the places or avenues that we heard about Daudi was basically sports, which was basketball, and then I think it came to sports management when you went, I think, to was it Sulom?
Sulom as vice president.
As vice president, yeah. So we had Daud there, and I think apart from those that I think followed your journey, when you started your own things now, when you started, was that Nyimbo Zat?
Nyimbo Music Company.
Nyimbo Music Company. Yes, that's when we actually linked, oh, Daud is an IT person. But I think for most people, like maybe my age or younger than me, and a lot of other people that haven't had an interaction with you, saw Daud as a sports personality or somebody who's just in sports. Yeah. And to think that you also have been through all these corporate avenues with OIBM, with NBS, and with Nico, I think a lot of people don't know that.
No, true. I get that a lot. I think mostly it's perception. People, when they read about you in the newspapers and you're always associated with football, for instance, and we're at a time that we still regard football or sports as as a lesser discipline. Therefore, people that are in that circle, they're not people that are serious with
they
their life.
They don't have a serious career, so they opt to go sports.
To go to sports because there's a whole lot of Kutola Kobwe or the thugs and vandalism and all sorts of things. Therefore, if you're around football, you are part of that. But it's different. As I mentioned, growing up in Chirinda, I played a lot of football, and I've been around football for the longest of time. I didn't play competitive football, but all my friends have always been around football. So for me to get to be vice president of Sulom, which was against people that were already in Sulom at that point in time, you can imagine that even at the votes, the entire executive of that outgoing Sulom committee was voting. And we had about 16 teams, and each team had 2 votes to give in. And I got 70% of that vote. So it was it was a surprise to a lot of people, but to the people within football, because I was already one of them, they knew me. So I wasn't a stranger that has walked into the room. I was just one of those guys that now publicly people would now associate with football. So I came in as vice president, and about 2 years later, I went into Football Association of Malawi, which is like an upgrade coming from an affiliate to go to the main body. And I went there unopposed. And I think I'm the first candidate to ever win a farm election without facing stiff competition. So that has exposed me to a lot about sports management. I've been lucky to attend FIFA congresses, CAF congresses. I've done a lot of work with CAF at Africa level. I was one of the what they call game coordinators that would manage a whole game. So I've traveled around Africa on football duties, and I have also a bigger network of friends around football. So yes, football is great. It's just that it's unfortunate that our game is not developing to the next level, but at a continental level as well as globally, football is becoming serious business.
Wow. Okay, what do you attribute all the steps that you take from sports to all the other things, of which would go to the other things, but going into Sulom, for example, there are people that have been there they've always been in football management and all that, and you just came in and you became the vice president. Is it how you interact or relate with the other people, or do you think there's something about you and leadership that maybe is just in you, that when you show up, everybody's like, oh, it's just going to be like, I think he should be
He should be VP.
yeah.
No. I think it takes a whole lot more than that. I think as I mentioned, I've been around a whole lot of football personnel and football people. But most importantly is that I always speak my mind and I always make my intentions known. I believe in setting the course right. So that there are no hidden tricks along the way, and no one gets surprised. So when I started campaigning to be the vice president, I was speaking the vision that I would like to contribute. At that time, the president was the late Bottoman, and I did reach out to him and I explained to him exactly what I thought the Super League could achieve and what it could do, and why I was the right person to partner with him as a president. And that was the same message that I consistently took. So I think communicating intentions and setting your tone from the word go has been one of the key things that I always try to do, and that has given me the leverage to be able to stand on platforms where I'm able to articulate what it is that I'm thinking and how we're going to do and how we're going to go about it. And that I think it helps me to get buy-in, and in the process, it makes certain things to be easy, other than to come in with a different perspective and a different narrative, and then change it along the way, and it kind of it creates discomfort in people. I know by being very upfront about the tone, you you're always shaking the system. You're always shaking status quo, and it's not easy. You saw what happened when we started revoking radio licenses,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
the uproar, and the bitterness, and people not understanding what
Why
it is
this?
that's
Yeah.
happening. But 12 months down the line, today everyone seems to have understood.
Understanding now that,
Yes, it's that.
oh,
Oh, okay, this is what's happening, and this is why things are happening. So you see that new developments that are happening around the regulatory space and the regulatory actions that we're taking. When we follow through social media comments and feedback, you see that the general public seems to be now on our side. Now they've understood that what we're doing is in good faith,
Yeah.
because we set that tone from the onset and we've stayed on that. So we haven't flip flopped. We haven't changed anything. The line was drawn, and it is that line that we're consistently
Maintaining.
going after. So that, I think, is one of the attributes that I think I use effectively. It's never easy, but I think it makes life easy in the long run, and it helps open certain doors.
Cool. Talking about staying the course, about your intention, the things that you believe in, and trying to communicate that directly to the people. I think for a lot of people that maybe were not following you time that you were in sports and everything, actually saw you when you came up now on the political front, when you started leading the Kokoliko movement. And I was surprised, because I had never associated you with politics prior to that. But when I actually now followed all the speeches that you made, the interviews that you gave, and the vision that you had carried with the Kokoliko movement, I was so surprised. And she was like, "Oh, how is Daud this bored when it comes to politics?" Because I know you are somebody who is competitive, because you have been in the game. Sports is about competitions and whatnot. But when you came in, there have been a lot of people that were there, names that we have carried when we were young and grew up worshiping as people that know politics. You came in with a different tone. You had your own vision and agenda in a political party that was existent. I don't think you have ever had any position in
No.
but you had a vision, had a movement of other young people that just walked with you, believed in you, and you carried it with so much faith. How did you do that?
No,
How did you just say, okay, I'm gonna go with this vision and carry people that believe in this vision with me?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is about our country. Our country is Malawi, and we belong to Malawi, and this is where we are going to die. This is us. What that means is that we have to nurture and we have to protect. We have to guard jealously this country. So the social political space, we are all political in nature.
Yes.
But there are opportunities that sometimes are there that you can contribute to the well-being of the
For the
country.
country, yeah.
And I think it is upon every Malawian who is well-meaning to stand up and to rise up and to take part. So there are so many fields and areas that require us as young people to raise your hand and say, okay, I'm going to come in and do this. Where you're seeing things are not being done correctly, it is incumbent upon us to come in and help, because we are now laying a foundation for the next generation. If we do not participate in the mixing of the concrete and the mixing of the cement and then Jenga and what have you, people will just throw in Jenga there and lay this foundation. And when the next generation comes, they're going to have a very weak foundation from which they should build on. Therefore, participation in social, political, and other activities. First of all, they're constitutional rights, but most importantly is that we should be able to stand up and offer ourselves as of service to the country so that we build the next generation.
Okay, cool. So, when you now helped, because you were a witness in the court, the presidential election case, of which you played a very huge role, sitting there in the during the period, were you not sometimes scared or second guessing your decisions? Like, okay, am I really fighting the system that was there then, which was like DPP, which was had already been elected, the president was already like sworn in, and you're sitting there. Were you not really thinking like, I think maybe I should back down if things don't go right? Things could go back, which is basically, I think, what most of us young people do. We think about merits and demerits, and where we think there could be a danger. Usually, we like pull out. Were you not considering that at any point during that period?
No, not at all. So I think my participation in the Constitutional Court case number 1 of 2019 was merely out of the conviction that we could do better as a country, and I thought that we had a situation that needed to be corrected, and we had a situation that required all of us to join hands in ensuring that we build for a better tomorrow. So there was no point where I could start second guessing the processes leading to the point where now I made the decision that okay, I'll participate as a witness. It was rigorous. We had gone through whatever material that was there, and we had looked at what was at stake, not at a personal level. If I had put myself first, then I think the issues that you're bringing up would have arisen. But at that point in time, it was a matter of can we correct the situation here? And I'm glad that I was given an opportunity to be part of that team. And as they say, the rest is history. And let's now build on what we already started, which is going towards a better Malawi. As the president keeps on saying that a new Malawi is rising.
Right, yeah.
But how would that new Malawi rise if we don't participate? It's not like the new Malawi, it's right like a construction somewhere that some people are building the house and you're just sitting out here
Watching.
and watching it. Oh, now they're on floor 22. Oh, now floor. No. You have to be inside there. You have to be one of the guys throwing bricks. You have to be one of the guys with the shovels running up and down. In that way, that new Malawi will rise. It's going to be collective. So at no point have I put my fear or my interest or or I would perceive as personal gain
Mm.
faced. Because if I had done that, yeah, you're right. It's not easy to go after an establishment. It's not easy uh, to sit in court and have the Attorney General of the country
Yeah.
fire questions to you.
Yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
you think through that, Attorney General behind him is the entire
Judicial
judiciary, the
systems.
entire Ministry of Justice. So
Yeah.
this guy has access to maybe 100 lawyers. Now, what if all those 100 lawyers are contributing to what he's going to say? Am I going to survive? But uh, being a court, you're discussing your evidence, you're discussing your submission. So I think that was one of the key things that I learned to say, if what I have is truthful, if what I have is good, then I should not be scared that there are certain things that are going to come upon me. But if I had lies, if I had things that were cooked up, if I had things that were not correct, then we're going to have a problem.
Problem, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the power of believing in self, and also the power of believing in truth, and being consistent in that truth was one of the things that kept me sane, and kept me strong throughout that process. It wasn't easy at a personal level, at a family level. It wasn't easy. It was a risk, but at the end of the day, it was for creating a better Malawi.
Talking about creating a better Malawi. We're done with all that, and then a new government is in place. We all celebrated the victory, and we made, I think, history across the globe about safeguarding our democracy. And I know you should be a very proud person to be part of that, because you took the bold step to walk in there and be part of safeguarding that historic moment that was 2019 2020 constitutional court case. Now, that's done. Business. We're trying to rebuild a new Malawi. You see an opportunity of a director general arise at the MACRA,
Mm.
and you're home, wherever you are, you're making a decision to apply for this challenging job.
Mm.
What was going on in your mind to say, I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens?
Yeah, I think first of all, the I grew up around the sector. I've always been around technology. I've always been around communications and networking. I've always interacted with Macra from all my jobs that I've had.
Yeah.
I had an understanding of what Macra does, and I had an understanding of the opportunity and potential that Macra could actually go and be what it should be.
Mm.
I thought it was lagging behind. So I I thought I could challenge myself and step up to create a difference. The difference in the sense that reposition Macra to be where it should be in the communication sector, not just as a regulator, but as a partner in developing the sector,
Mm.
in ensuring that there are more Malawians that are now accessing communication services. So, how do we do that? How do we grow communication services for everyone in a fair way? How do we ensure that Malawians are being protected from harmful service delivery, from poor service delivery? And also, how do we then exploit the growth of that sector so that it benefits a whole lot of people, SMEs, it benefits people, but most importantly, that it should contribute noticeably to the GDP growth of the country. So those were the driving factors that made me believe that I had something of value to offer. So when I went for the interviews, it was a panel with about 11, 12 people. So it wasn't an easy panel. The Solicitor General was there. People from Ministry of Finance, the Macra board was there. So we had a good conversation, and I thank God that they liked what my proposal was for where Macra should be. And now you can see, as they say, that now we are now walking the talk. This is evident in how we're now doing our work, because my board is aligned to how the new strategic plan has been, and to also the tone that we have set. So because of that alignment between the board and myself as Director General, as well as members of management, then we have an organization that is now ticking, that is now rising in our sector.
Yeah, very true. I know several MACRA GDs that have been there, but I don't think there's one that I would always remember the way I now remember you. Not just because you are incumbent, but
Yeah,
because
yeah,
of the type of communication that's been out there, the type of activities that have already happened ever since you assumed your role as the DG.
yeah,
And I think for now I can confidently say I think you are the most active uh, director generals that I've seen personally at
yeah,
MACRA. And that's evident because even this week, I think we closed it on a MACRA note, basically.
yeah,
The last week, the first week of January, because of,
yeah,
I think, all the issues that have come out, or the penalties that you have actually dished out to people that are not abiding to what their license says or the act says, which we
yeah,
haven't been hearing, I think, in the past.
yeah,
And in the past, when you hear those things, it was always because there was always like, okay, it's politically motivated.
yeah,
But you have come out to clarify all these things and whatnot. So I think I admire you for the courage and being transparent enough, because people debate, but I don't think I've seen one of the debates where people said, hey, I think Ababa Tunde Alawita. It's always
mm,
like it points to the statutes that govern the authority itself. Now, to talk about Makra,
yeah.
you are there now. You have been there for like a year or so, I think.
Yeah, on 1st November, I
You clocked
finished
a
1 year.
okay.
Yes.
What would you say are the challenges that you have seen that Malawi is facing when it comes to broadcasting, communications, and tech?
Well, I think generally it is the cost of those services. Uh, I agree. Data is still a bit expensive. Voice is a bit expensive. Uh, the TV industry has shrunk.
Mm,
Not a lot of people are watching local
TV,
TV.
yeah.
Local content, we're doing very, very badly. There's a rise in cyber crimes, a rise in cyber bullying. There's a lot of fake information and misinformation that is coming in. The courier sector, it is promising to be growing. There are a lot of people that are expressing interest to participate in the courier segment.
Mm.
It is still a bit informal. We are in the process of pushing it up. So cost of services, poor quality of service, and accessibility of gadgets. Those would be the key challenges that we have faced. But then the underlining problem that we are seeing is also issues to do with digital literacy.
Mm.
People understanding the digital space.
Yeah.
The digital space has come at a time where we're already confident with whatever we were
We
doing.
have. Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, someone has a mobile gadget that has a camera, and they can take pictures and they can take videos, and they can receive videos and pictures from a whole lot of people. And that gadget is also connected to a mobile wallet, which has money in it.
Mm.
Therefore, the amount of information you receive, if you're not careful about what information you should trust and what you should do, we've seen people being scammed.
Mm, mm.
Even at SMS level, mobile money fraud continues to be on the rise. There's a lot of money that's being lost, and that has created a new digital gap that, as a country, we now need to pay attention to, because now digital literacy is cutting across. Whether you're a CEO, whether you are an illiterate farmer who's never been to school,
Mm.
but you have access to a mobile phone. you are part of the digital age, and you need to understand what it is that you have access to and how you can use it to build yourself, to build your community, as well as to build the country. So those are the key challenges that we are looking at, and we hope that by the next 4 or 5 years, some of these we should deal with them. Data should become cheaper. Um, uh, More devices, more people should have more smart devices, more people should connect. We should have a generation that is digitally literate. We should have kids that are in public schools that understand what Google Classroom is. They should understand what the digital communication is all about. Not just leaving it to kids that are in private schools, but
Yeah.
even those that are in public schools. Our syllabuses must be adjusted so that they should now start to talk about the digitalization and how do you operate and live and thrive in a digital era. Once we do that, we would have created more people that are in the digital space, and the more people that are in the digital space and they're secured and they have trust in the systems, then more digital transactions will start to take place. When we build more digital transactions, it now means that our digital economy has now begun to thrive, and that is where we're going to develop as a country in the digital space.
Okay, talking about the challenges, and you have just talked about fraud, digital fraud, which has been rampant, I think, for the past years. And for the first time, I heard, I think, several people being arrested the past year in 2022, connected to this syndicate, where I think telco company employees were involved, and then there's a whole thing of Zomba prison inmates, where most like these people are there trying to swindle people from there. What has been the challenge really when you like went there? Because we've been talking about this, like why are people failing to trace these people for years? Like I know a lot of people that have been uh swindled
Yeah.
of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions and whatnot. But I always think digital transactions leave a footprint. Why was it and is it still difficult to just like find out who got this money? Where was the sim registered? Where was the transaction um withdrawn, the money withdrawn and whatnot? What has been the challenge, and what things have you been able to do to at least track the few that have been arrested?
Yeah. So first of all, we must accept that uh, innovation will always be ahead of law, will always be ahead of people. And as I mentioned, we are now being introduced to the digital space, and the digital space has a number of problems. As you've rightly put, mobile money fraud is one of the key risks that we're seeing. Where is the mobile money fraud coming in? It's coming in because now the usage of mobile money is rising, which points to the fact that more and more Malawians are adopting digital ways of living.
Yeah.
It now creates an opportunity for thieves. It now creates an opportunity for fraudsters to come in and manipulate that area. To safeguard against that, one, the KYC exercise that was done by mobile operators was there to help us to connect a SIM to a national ID. Hopefully, it will connect to a person. There have been a few challenges with the KYC process, and we'll be starting another process of revalidating and flashing out that data so that we now concretize and we zero in on the KYC data. And then secondly is the issue of handset registration. You see that we've been registering just a SIM card,
Yeah.
but the handsets have not been registered. Now you need both a SIM card and a handset for you to operate on a mobile network. Now we are now starting the process of registering all handsets in Malawi. By registering the handsets, we hope that we're going to reduce the opportunity that these fraudsters have had, because now all they need is one handset and 100 SIM cards, and they'll operate as a different person
Person, yeah,
on the SIM cards, but using one handset. So issues of stolen phones, issues of handsets that are fake handsets that that are not that did not pass through proper production lines. We need to take those out of our networks. One, because they're a health hazard. Secondly, is just to protect everyone else that is in the space. So there are very strong initiatives that we are undertaking together with the Reserve Bank of Malawi, Malawi Prison Services, the National Registration Bureau, Airtel Money, TNM Pamba, and the Consumer Association. So we are working closely together on these initiatives. So we are not going to be in a situation where there will be zero cybercrime, but we are moving towards reducing and ensuring that we contain the areas and the sectors that we know. So there's a lot that we're doing to that regard.
Okay, cool. Now, when we go to the issues of broadcasting, you in passing you talked about all the licenses that you have been revoking and all that, and there's been always a backlash from different people. From just looking at how you've been handling that whole thing, why do you think it is right, and you have to act based on the law to make sure that radios, whether it's community radios, religious radios, or just any other radios, stick to the act, the Communications Act, when it comes to licenses? And what are the biggest challenges you think there's been that lapse in renewing their licenses and whatnot?
Well, I think let's start from the challenges and where we're coming from. We're coming from an era where external influences on the regulator were so big and so high, such that to an extent, the officers of the regulator could not undertake certain work professionally. That is a fact, and that we acknowledge. But what we must also understand is that laws and regulations were created for a reason and for a purpose. The moment we begin to divert from what the law and the regulations and the rules are saying, then we are creating a totally different sector. It's no longer regulation. It's no longer regulated. You no longer have an authority because you've created MACRA under the laws of Malawi via parliament to give it mandate, to give it powers over a certain area. And MACRA went further to create the regulations, the rules, as well as the terms of conditions of licenses, so that as it executes its role, it is not overstretching. It is not doing things that the initial thought of coming up with the authority gave MACRA. So I'm saying we pointing to the current authority, because the authority is the board. The members of the current board and myself and my management team, we are here to follow what the law says. So in following what the law says, we went into a situation where a lot of people had suspended the laws and the regulations and the license terms, and they operated. So you're now coming in and pushing people to come back to pay a license fee, for example. The license fee is a statutory obligation. It means by law you have to pay. So it doesn't say that tall people shall not pay licenses, but short people should pay licenses. No, it just says every licensee must pay a license. So we take that and we go into the sector and we say who has not paid. So everyone who has not paid, move to the left. Everyone who has paid, move to the right. And that's as simple as that. So but when that started to happen, obviously it touched on the broadcasting sector, because radio, people have an emotional connection with radio.
Yes.
So people who follow one particular radio station or one particular program on a certain radio station, they've made radio as part of their life. So when you come and you're saying, no, this radio station, it has not paid for 5 years, it must move out. They are not seeing what it is that the other side has not done, and they're only seeing you as MACRA being political. You are assaulting media. You are shrinking the media space. You're fighting freedom of expression and all of you. When in actual fact, all we're doing is we're just saying, let us all play to the same rules and let us play the same ball game. So I think we've now moved to a point where now radio operators and all licensees in the sector are now seeing that we are just doing our work. About 3 of them have taken us to court, and all the 3 times the courts have agreed with MACRA. So that gives us the strength, and that gives us the encouragement to say, we are not being emotional here. We are not being segregative. We're just applying the law equally to everyone. So those that don't want to follow the law, they're going to find it very hard to operate in our sector. Those that are going to follow the law, the regulations, the rules, as well as the terms and conditions of their licenses, they are going to thrive. And that is what we are here to do, to support them so that they thrive.
Maybe the ones that don't want to be paying can just join our side. Start podcast, maybe.
Well, but as I mentioned, innovation goes ahead of regulation.
Yeah.
And very soon, don't be surprised, if in this sector as well, we'll start regulating.
Actually, that was my second question.
Yeah, we'll start
are you
regulating.
already thinking about
We are.
podcasting and how to regulate those
We
spaces?
we are. And it's a global. It is a global movement. It is a global thing. The same arguments that are being put for Netflix, Showmax, and Disney Plus versus multi-choice terrestrial broadcasters.
Platforms.
So as I mentioned, innovation will always go ahead of regulation. So we are paying attention, and we are going to come in, and we're now going to start dictating and creating this platform so that it becomes safe for your consumers. Because you now have the ability to transmit a certain message to a bigger audience. And if the message that you're broadcasting is harmful to the people of Malawi, it is harmful to the state, if it is harmful to a particular person, then we need to come in and be able to zero in on that. But we also understand that the game is shifting to content. So we're not going to come in to stifle the growth of that sector. If anything, we are going to come in to build on that sector.
Talking about building the sectors, recently I've been following the Corporate Society of Malawi. I've seen they've introduced what they're calling the Corporate Fund, with the intent of trying to help in assisting more people create content, but also creating awareness about the copyright issues in Malawi. Do you have any plans now as MACRA on how you're going to support content creation? Because you are bemoaning how we're not creating a lot of content, whether it's for TV, whether it's for radio, and all these other content, whether it's online. As MACRA, what's your vision like when it comes to content creation in Malawi?
So at MACRA, we have what is called the Universal Service Fund. And the Universal Service Fund is a collective fund where operators contribute a percentage of their income into that pot. We are using that to support content creation. We've started with the major universities. We've donated equipment to MUBAS, and we are also in the process of donating other equipment to Chancellor College, as well as Mzuni and MAST. To go further, we are now looking at how do we create content hubs in districts at a district level, so that someone in Chisi, they can walk into these hubs and have access to equipment and create their content, upload that content. But then most importantly is that when they upload the content, how do they monetize it? How do they earn a living out of that? And we're speaking to Google, Facebook, for monetization of Malawian content. So we are paying attention to local content, and shortly we are also going to start pushing for 80% local content, 20% foreign content on radios and TVs. Now that we believe will help us to position the content creation space better, so that now there is a platform where you're sure that local content will have an audience.
Yeah, I think that should be very exciting because, to be honest, right now, when you go even in clubs, when you go out to the clubs, you find 90% basically of music being played there is international. It's Nigeria, it's Zambia, South Africa.
Mm.
There's little of Malawian content in there. And the same, I think, applies to content that we see on TV and
Mm.
radio. So I think that would be like a very, very great step to take
Yep.
when it comes to 2080 content, and also just supporting people that are creating content to have access and equipment or resources basically that
Yeah.
support that. Talking about that support, you
Mm.
just mentioned that you have donated some equipment to Mubas. I
Mm.
think in the previous week there's been mixed reaction on
Mm.
that.
Mm.
Um, the key thing has been the amount that was mentioned to have been donated to
Mhm.
Mubas, 400 million Malawi kwacha,
Mhm.
and people were not very, very amused basically with the I think the equipment that they was purchased. And
Mm.
I'm not sure if it's true, but I read that you were quoted to say you were also not pleased with
Mm.
the content. Was that true? Were you pleased with the
No,
donation
no,
that
no.
Macra made?
I think I was. I made my feelings known
Mm,
about that, and my position was that as Macro could have done better.
okay.
Uh, I understand what 400 million can
Can
do.
do, yeah.
I understand how these cables work and what is happening where. The point there is that we have an opportunity to create more content hubs
Mm,
across the country, and if we begin to stick and to overload the costs on one center, then I already mentioned that we're already thinking of every district should have
have
a
a hub.
content center. Uh, at 400 million, you cannot go to 28 districts.
Mm,
It's a whole lot of money.
mm,
But if we revisit that plan, and if we revisit that equipment and how it should behave, we can easily have even 5 content hubs in every district
yeah.
easily. That will help us to create more content and to also enable more people to have access to that. Now, there are two sides to that. One is an issue where people think we need to get the super high end Netflix approved cameras and what have you. And on the other hand, what we're saying is, uh, think of that guy in Malomo Monchisi.
Yeah.
All he needs to do is to have a music video created. Do we really need to have
That high
Netflix?
end
Yeah, a Netflix
camera.
approved camera, or we need to have the appropriate HD camera that would be affordable, but give them the infrastructure and the space where they can create. Now, if we have 7 of those kids, Malomo, Tegerani, Fatima, all the way up to Hewe, to Misuku, then we are creating more Malawian content.
Mm, mm,
And that is what we want, more digital content to be created. So it's a twofold issue. We can do better as Macra, but most importantly is that we should create more spaces where creatives can walk in, create digital content, process it, and publish it. But once we do that, now the key question is they should be able to make money out of it.
right. Yeah, I think making money is a key thing when it comes to content. We've seen how South Africans, Nigerians are like raking in millions from YouTube, TikTok, and all that. We have a trend right now that's getting there. At least we have got several music videos from Malawi that are hitting 1 million mark. And if we were able to monetize that, could have been making us a bit more. So yeah, kudos for taking the steps. And how are the negotiations like with those Google and whatnot? When do you think would be like having proper conversations? Say, oh, okay, we're getting in
Mm.
there.
No, as of now, we've already started engaging. We've met Facebook twice. We've met Google in South Africa. We are now taking the matter not just as Malawi. We are now taking it as a SADC issue, because there are other smaller countries as well that are in the same problem as us. So a number of us coming together is giving us a bigger voice that we're going to be heard. It is an ongoing negotiation. I cannot pinpoint the exact point where we're going to cross the bridge. But the most important thing to note is that we are now on the table and we are presenting the Malawi story and we are presenting where we want to go. And issues of digital content and monetization of that content, both locally as well as internationally, are things that we are asking for a serious reconsideration.
Okay. In the past few weeks, I read somewhere, I think it was on LinkedIn, there was a whole submission that somebody had written. I think you had met them, I don't know if it was in Dubai or somewhere. And they just wrote about your thought process and how this was, it was a guy from a European country somewhere, but he was just trying to um, explain how he had interaction with you and your thought process and how I think globally you're becoming a thought reader when it comes to broadcasting, tech, and all those things. And I think for me that was compounded when I heard MACRA was hosting the space conference, and I sat there. I think I met Sadi. I was like, Sadi, is this like a, when you say space conference, is it like just like a promo gimmick of something? It's like, no, it's about space. Like, I was like, oh, okay. So we talked about it. Unfortunately, I was not in the city when it was happening, but I followed everything online and whatnot. How did you even think of thinking about the space and the opportunities that exist in there? And what's your vision when you think about space? If you are to tell a layman in 2 minutes, why is that important?
Well, let's look at the cholera situation in Malawi. Cholera is coming in mostly because of issue of sanitation, water and sanitation. Just that alone, we need to be able to know Bangwe and to know where the water points are in Bangwe. We need to know where the toilets are in Bangwe. We need to know where the boreholes are in Bangwe. And most importantly, we need to know where the clinics are in Bangwe. You can do that from a space perspective. So now data exists already that we can tap into and then map Bangwe, and then we'll be able to know why Bangwe is becoming a hotspot for cholera. Because you now have access from a space perspective. You can apply that geodata and you'll be able to see that, wait a minute, the number of boreholes that are in Bangwe, they're all lining on this River here. And the distances from these boreholes to where the clinic is just too big. Or maybe to get to this clinic, they have to go all around a certain hill or a certain mountain. And because of that, it is actually creating a problem for people around here to access the health services. And that's why the infections are high on this side. So that's one practical way in which the Malawi Space Program can come in handy. So issues to do with, now we've planted maize. Can we predict how much of maize we're going to have as a harvest? We can do that from a space perspective. So the data is there, the space imagery is there. We program the machines. We create a computer program that begins to learn that this is how a maize crop at 12 weeks should look like, at 3 weeks should look like. Therefore, is this growing on the right trajectory, or it's growing in the other direction? Therefore, there's going to be a problem with our harvest, or there's going to be a bumper harvest, because you now have actual data from a space perspective. So those are some of the applications that make the space agency a much needed utility in the country. So when we talk about space, we're not sending man to the moon.
Of course, that's what we thought. I think that's what the conversation has been. When people, actually, every other person was talking about it from the naysayers. It was
Yes.
like, oh no, we are now starting to think about sending man to the moon
No,
and like all that. And I think there wasn't that application to real life situation that people
no,
needed to
no,
understand.
exactly. So, as I mentioned, there's a lot that we can exploit in the space industry. But most importantly, that we must know is that Malawi, as a nation, has space allocated as you go up. There's a plot
Yeah.
which is for Malawi. So if we're going to launch satellites for broadcasting services, if we're going to launch satellites for broadband internet, or we want to launch our own satellite to do climate change and what have you, there is a space where every country that is a member of the ITU in the world, everyone has their plot in space. And even us, as poor as we are, we have
that space.
Yeah, so it's either we cannot afford to send a rocket or a satellite, or we can rent it out to someone else who wants to use
that space.
Yeah, and that is
still benefits.
that is revenue that's going to come to Malawi. But most important is that we should understand that there's been a lot of investment that other people have made into space. Therefore, there's a lot of data that other people are already collecting that we need to now tap into that data, bring it to Malawi, localize it, and then make decisions based on that data from space. Because otherwise, then you need to send a health surveillance agents into Bangwe, and then they should
Be on the ground, walk
be
to-
on the ground. You're exposing them to all sorts of things. But from a space perspective, we can be in Lilongwe and map Chinteji and Katabe and really predict what is happening with cholera, and then send the right interventions to the right areas within Katabe.
And is that also linked to the mapping? Because I know I've read somewhere where MACRA is also championing the mapping of streets and whatnot.
National addressing.
National addressing, yeah.
Yeah, so it is connected, because at the end of the day, when you have a patient that has been hit by cholera in Bangwe, you need to send an ambulance. You need to be able to know exactly where this person is. You don't need to know when you get to Mandambuzi, look for a big tree, and then look for an agent, and then look for a green gate. And no, you're just going to be given 15 Mulanje Road in Bangwe. So there'll be one Mulanje Road in Bangwe, and there'll be number 15 house. That will be the only house. So you just go straight to that house. Therefore, the mapping and the naming and the addressing of our country, it is a very critical and foundational issue that we are taking very, very seriously. So as we speak, we've finished with the northern region.
Okay.
All the streets, all the roads, and all the footpaths, including those in the rural areas in Rumpi and Karonga, they've been given names.
Wow.
And they've also been mapped on a GIS portal. And then all of them have been assigned addresses. The next thing that we're doing is now to put the infrastructure so that you can see, oh, this is Nyika Road, this is Chugulamaembe Road, this is house number 15 on Nyika Drive in Mzuzu. Wow. So that process and that project we've been undertaking for the past 6 months in the northern region. We are now happy. I think we're about 90% done. We're now in the process of procurement of these road signs, and that's it. The moment we deliver the road signs, we are launching that. Then every street and every house in the northern region would have been named and physically addressed.
Wow. So there's all these funds that are going on. We talked about the Copyright Society of Malawi. And I think in one of the readings that I did, I saw that MACRA has a fund called Muni Fund. Can you break down this fund? What is it about, and what does it aim to achieve?
So in the digital space, you get a lot of ideas and a lot of people trying to do things. Much of that goes unnoticed, and much of that goes unaccounted for. So you see that a number of other institutions have done their innovation funds, and year in, year out, they are awarding people for innovations. But come next year, you completely lose the ones that won last year. But further to that is that people that are in the rural areas, people that are outside the towns, people that are outside mainstream media. They're not in tune, they're not in line with how they can access these innovation funds and platforms. So Mooni Fund is basically an initiative from MACRA that creates a platform. That platform is there to create an equal access platform where, regardless of where you are, you should be able to submit your ideas, submit your innovation, and MACRA with other stakeholders. We're going to create a platform that is going to incubate, that is going to support, that is going to inject capital into those ideas. But the most important thing is that we're now going to keep track, and we're now going to account how much of our money have we spent towards agriculture in this idea. So that if next year someone comes up with the same idea, we have a way of telling them, no, this has already been tried, and these are the gaps. So if you can go back, learn from what this did, and build on this, and then bring it up. So in that way, we are not just opening the field for new innovations over and over, but we begin to zero in on certain innovations that can now scale up. But as they scale up, now you need the people need support to register companies, to protect their intellectual property. How do they link with other stakeholders, with other people? Now this fund will now help to facilitate for that. So in short, Mooni Fund is there to ensure that every Malawian, wherever they are, their ideas can be heard, their ideas can be documented, and they have an opportunity to showcase.
When are you expected to launch the fund?
The fund should be launched in April. As we speak, we have some underlining work that we are pushing, and it is that work that once it has cleared, we are now going to open up for people to submit their applications. And once we do that, we now go into a process of evaluation, and then we'll come back to the general public to announce as we progress with these innovations.
Okay. And initially, how much is the investment into the fund?
350 million Malawi kwacha from MACRA annually.
Annually.
And our hope is that we're going to get stakeholders that are going to match, and we want to hit 1 billion Malawi kwacha per year.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, sure,
That's
sure.
huge.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for that. I've also heard that MACRA plans to relocate from Blantyre. And where is it going to be? And if you can just shed more light on that.
So there's a government directive which is dated 2012, where all government MDAs, government statutory corporations and entities were requested to move to Lilongwe because the seat of government is in Lilongwe.
Yeah.
And a lot of traffic with government happens in Lilongwe. So from 2012 up until now, with MACRA, we've been in the process of relocating to Lilongwe. Now, in the process of us relocating to Lilongwe, we've now met up with a new directive from a presidential delivery unit perspective, which is now trying to establish a smart city and an innovation city. And now things are pointing towards that MACRA headquarters will be established within the smart city. So the smart city, as we speak, will be established between Lilongwe and Salima along the Mvera stretch.
Okay.
So somewhere there's going to be a new city that is going to be established around innovation, around technology, around ICT. So all government entities that are around technology and IT will be expected to be housed in this area.
And what's the importance of having, let's say, all the tech like companies, organizations in that catchment area? Like, why is it important to have them co-located almost in the same geographical area?
Yeah. First of all, it is important for us to have focused efforts and for us to have one push towards digitalization, and that can happen if we bring together everyone that is in that space into one area where we can now build one agenda together and we can move together. So the digital economy space is a space that we are also learning. As Malawi, Therefore, we need to have more consolidated efforts with one another, with other stakeholders, so that we build on this. Now, it can best be done by showing the intent that as Malawi, we are coming and we are creating a digital hub for Africa. And we can only do that by establishing that zone where if someone comes to Malawi and they want anything digital, they know that they have to come to them.
So it's more like in the spirit of the Silicon Valley.
It is our Silicon Valley.
I
Yes,
see.
yes.
Ah, perfect. No, I think that's why we needed to have this conversation with you, because MACRA, I think, is on top of a lot of things. And when it comes to innovations, when it comes to making, I think, our country better, I think MACRA is there. We have all these other agencies that I think can learn a lot basically now on how you are doing your things. And I think for us as podcasts, we know we have a narrative that we want to help spread out there. And it's about the shift that is there, of which you represent that shift of how young people can come in, being given the platform and start delivering. So, Daud, I think you are doing a great job.
Thank
you are an amazing person. And to see you driving this whole macro agenda and how you have 10 things for the time that you have been at macro, I think is quite recommendable.
Sure.
And I think from us as a team podcast and the community that we speak to, this interview would go down in the memory lane. I don't know how long people will see that and just look back at this conversation and the things that you have said and things that you have already done and be inspired by it. In conclusion, as a person now, what's your vision after Macra? Okay, you're there now. I know you have like a probably 5-term or 10-year plan. What do you want to see? Like, if there's one thing that when you go to bed at night, you say, if I achieve that, I'll be like a very happy person and I can go buy land at Likoma and just relax there.
Yeah, I think for me is I think a deeper penetration of the digital space and just ensuring that everyone is safe and secure and we're able to monetize it. You know, that would be a good accomplishment, not just at a personal level, but it changes the economy of the country big time. It creates a big substitute for agriculture, and just the fact that we have over 20 million people in Malawi, and those are potential content creators. Those are all potential content consumers, and we can exploit value amongst ourselves. And that I think it creates a big opportunity, and it gives Malawi the next leverage in the sense that we can become a digital hub in this part of the continent, and it's possible. It is possible. So a whole lot of smaller moving wheels in the background, but I think the moment we can move the penetration rate of internet, for now we're at 18%.
18%,
If we can get to 50% penetration, it changes the ball game. Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Cool, Daud. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to just have this conversation.
Sure.
So that was my conversation with Daud on Podcast Malawi. I hope this conversation inspires you. If you have anything, any comments, drop them in the comment section. And for any follow-up things, I think his office is open. If he managed to grant us this interview, I think we should have more spaces and platforms where you can just have conversation with your input and everything. But for now, thank you so much for being part of this podcast. More content in 2023. And you know what you're supposed to do? Like this podcast, share it, subscribe to the channel. Until next Tuesday, 3 p.m. for another candid conversation with someone else who's doing something different in this country. I've been your host, Dennis Imani, and keep it Podcast Malawi. Till next time.